Ottawa and Canada in general. Another edition of my video blog on Canadian sovereignty, and as a follow-up to Carney's fabulous speech in Davos. I cannot say that I've been a great fan of our Prime Minister's approach since he changed his elbows up position, but that Davos speech, in my view, is definitely excellent in my view as far as summing up the need for middle powers in the world today to come together based upon the common set of shared values in democracy and the pursuit of a just society for all to countervail the Trump's move to embracing Chinese and more precisely Putin-style authoritarianism. There's a great speech which also relates to Trump's focus on a transactional approach where he seeks to fleece allies and coerce allies rather than work on a cooperative basis with allies, which was the whole basis of the post-World War II international order that has maintained peace, though it has been championed by the United States. But unfortunately, Trump has saw fit to erase history and focus on an old-style imperialistic policy which seeks to seize control of the Western Hemisphere, to re-embrace the Monroe Doctrine, which has been recoined to suit his megalomaniacal construction of himself, in which he presented to the world when he presented a golden calf image of himself. Remember that a few months ago, where he put himself as the golden calf and his image of Trump in gold and stuff. I mean, what more? And at the same time, he embraces Christianity. I mean, what more heretical? What more almost? I know I have to be careful of my words on YouTube. More anti-Christian than seeking to rival Christ through the golden calf. If people remember those older movies with Noah in it. So let's get back to the whole question of how can we as Canadians countervail the Trump's desire to seize the Western Hemisphere, including Greenland. What can we do? Well, one approach is what our Prime Minister has pledged to focus on, which is to shore up bilateral ties and to shore up Canadian sovereignty, and we definitely need to shore up our military capabilities, because I saw an interesting stat. We have about 100,000 military troops in Canada with a population of 40 million, and Australia, by comparison, has a smaller population and apparently, I don't know whether this is accurate, but I saw that they apparently have 2 million troops. So if that was accurate, we have some work to do if Trump's going to change the script, so to speak, and we need to protect ourselves as Canadians. So we have some work to do. So, the Prime Minister talked about 300,000 citizen soldiers and military and the Canadian Armed Forces. We definitely need to exceed that as quickly as possible. Notwithstanding that, this video today talks about and tries to get your viewpoint on what can we do. Well, my 2 cents worth in this whole discussion is, definitely is a great approach to focus on strengthening our military capabilities and, cultivating bilateral relations when we can. But how about us directly going head on against this Monroe Doctrine and this Donroe Doctrine? How about the Canadian Doctrine? How about that? Now, this is what I'm proposing for a Canadian Doctrine of the Western Hemisphere, because we don't want, at least most of us Canadians don't want Trump seizing control of Greenland, but we don't really particularly want Trump intimidating and coercing and attacking Mexico, Cuba, and creating chaos in the rest of the world, and particularly our Western Hemisphere, so to speak. So this is my proposal for a Canadian a two-step approach to a so-called Canadian doctrine based upon rather than imperialism, based upon the theme of our Prime Minister's speech, which is shoring up middle powers and inspiring and championing in democracy that the United States used to. So my two-pronged approach is, okay, how do we react to Trump making these threats with 100% tariff? So, and as the Europeans saw, Trump sort of was, worked out a deal with them, but as soon as he works out a deal, he wants to coerce and coerce and coerce and coerce. So no deal is stable with Trump. So here's a two-pronged approach. First pronged approach is for Carney to invite any like-minded governor in the United States to come to Ottawa. As I mentioned before in a previous video, come to Ottawa and discuss how to work around the instability that Trump is creating between Canada and the United States, which is not to the socioeconomic interests of Canadians. It is not to the socioeconomic interests of those states that see themselves as being impaired by Trump's erratic sociopathic policy. So that is one approach. They could be, inviting governors, any like-minded governors. I don't know how much that might be, but that's one approach. Invite like-minded governors in a constructive dialogue that has already started with bunches of governors coming to Ottawa, but make it a more organized approach and invite all the governors and see who shows up. There's one approach. So that's my proposed first-pronged strategy. The meeting would focus on how to get around Trump's craziness and work on constructive economic and political relationship, which is going to champion this idea of Canadian-based values, which is going to champion diversity and all those values that Trump is trying to subvert in his agenda of imperialism and destruction of the American Constitution. So that's my first prong approach. Second prong approach is to invite all the countries in the Western Hemisphere, all their leaders in Latin America, South America, to Ottawa. Including Cuba, Jamaica, Mexico, Brazil, all these powers to come together in Ottawa, and let's talk democracy, let's talk relations as a whole, how we can come together against the so-called Monroe Doctrine to ensure our mutual sovereignty and to a approach that's going to focus on a cooperative military, political, economic approach to the Western Hemisphere. That I believe that if we come together, if the Western Hemisphere minus Trump comes together in a mutual context of economic partnership, mutual sovereignty, and a pact, then that is going to countervail the so-called Monroe Doctrine. So that's a two-pronged approach. Invite all the U.S. governors to Ottawa who are like-minded and want to talk about a mutual arrangements that are going to work for their states and is going to work for us based upon our Canadian values, and to do the same thing for the Western Hemisphere. Let's work together in the Western Hemisphere minus Trump to make sure that Trump does not get his way and starts coercing and undermining the integrity of the Western Hemisphere and the integrity of other countries outside the Western Hemisphere. Because rest assured, if Trump ever got his way of coercing the Western Hemisphere, he would just keep moving and moving and moving to Africa, all over the place. So this is my two-pronged approach. And after that is done, why not invite leaders of Africa? Why not do that? So in my next video, subscribe to this video, and I will be going to asking you what you think of another approach. So in this topic, what do you think of that two-pronged approach? The two-pronged approach of first inviting like-minded Western U.S. governors to Ottawa and like-minded sovereign countries, their leaders, to Ottawa in the Western Hemisphere about building economic, political, and military ties that's going to work for everybody and short, and based upon sovereignty and diversity and Canadian values. What do you think about that? Please subscribe to this channel to keep up with my other ideas and questions. Thanks for watching.